connect people who've never been on a farm, who've never seen women farmers, who've never seen black farmers, who've never seen queer farmers. Our farm is a healing farm. We tell people in crisis, just come up. If you just want to just sit and look at the fields, or you just want to put your hands in the soil, or you just want to take off your shoes and put your feet in the soil, you can do that. You can do that. No questions asked. You can do that.
Welcome to the Real Organic Podcast. I'm Linley Dixon, co-director of the Real Organic Project. We're a grassroots, farmer-led movement with an add-on organic label that distinguishes food grown in healthy soils and animals raised on well-managed pasture, without synthetic fertilizers or toxic chemicals. Today, we're honored to share a conversation between Dave Chapman and Karen Washington, farmer, activist, and co-founder of Rise and Root Farm in New York's Hudson Valley. Karen sat down with Dave this summer to talk about her friendship with the late Joan Gussow, her decades of work in the food justice movement, and the deep joy of growing food for community. Her message is one of strength, passion, and community, that real change starts in our neighborhoods, in our gardens, and in our willingness to take care of one another. I hope you enjoy.
Welcome to the Real Organic Podcast, and I am feeling privileged to be talking with Karen Washington today. Karen, thank you so much for doing this. And we're talking about your work, but about Joan Gussow and your friendship with Joan, and how did all that happen?
Yeah, so I met Joan while we were on the board of Just Food at the time, and really didn't know how, in terms of being a celebrity, she was, because she was really, really down to earth. Gave a lot of wisdom, knew a lot about the food system. I was just a neophyte at the time, and just hearing her sort of navigate what was happening in real time around the food system, I was intrigued. They've actually talked about in her own backyard how she was growing food and how her relationship to land and food was so important to her. And as I started my journey in the food world, I would talk to her about, some advice. And one day she said, Karen, I want you to come and visit me, but I don't want you to come alone. I want you to come and bring your community gardeners, because at that time I was telling her, how community gardening was, and especially in low-income neighborhoods and neighborhoods of color, and people don't get a chance to go outside their comfort zone. And so she said, Karen, I want you and your gardeners to come for lunch. And most of my gardeners did not speak English at all. They mostly spoke Spanish. But I was able to convey to them that we were going on a trip to visit a friend. And she was, incredibly nice. She was just so warm. She made everyone feel so comfortable. We left with so much joy and so much love. And right then and there, I knew she was going to be a friend for life because of the kindness that she showed me and my fellow gardeners.
Yeah. Can you explain what Just Food was as an organization for people who don't know?
Yeah, so Just Food was an organization. The main focus and mission was on food justice, making sure that communities were being seen, were being heard. They were able to really work on community organizing skills for food systems and food organization, especially at a time where there was so much conflict around garden preservation, but people didn't really have the tools behind to help guide them in terms of standing up for their gardens. And so Just Food not only did that, but also was at the forefront of community-based farmers markets, getting communities to look at their food system. What is it that they need? What is it that they want? And then give them the tools to ask for it. So I remember Just Food starting a community-based farmers market. They also started a program to teach people to become chefs. Not to, no, I'm going to take that back. Not to teach people because people already knew, but giving them support so that community residents can then help communities to prepare food. And it was an excellent organization, really at the forefront of the food world at that point in time, because it really centered on communities that were less fortunate, not affluent communities, but communities were that were less fortunate, but was able to give them the tools to be able to be self-sufficient and self-reliant. And I think that's what I liked about Just Food. They didn't come in and try to control the narrative around food in people's community, but it's like, we are here, how can we help, instead of we are here and we're going to show you
Mhm.
what to do. No, it was like, we are here, let us see how we can help you. And I think that why Just Food was so important at that time.
And about when was this? When did you
This
go to
was
Jones
in
for lunch the
so
first time?
this was in 1990s, early 2000s.
And this was based in New York City?
Based in New York City. Based in
Yeah.
New York City. Right. The office was down like in Midtown, Manhattan at the time, but its roots stretch across all five boroughs in New York
Yeah,
City. So it wasn't
great.
like isolated in New York, I mean in Manhattan, but branched out all throughout all five boroughs.
All right. Well, I want to come back to that in a little bit, but I want to go back to that day that you went out to Jones. I've been to Jones too. I interviewed her there. It was,
Okay.
lovely. She was such a lovely person, and I think also so significant.
Mm-hmm.
So, what happened after? How many people came out for lunch that day?
Oh, it had to be about 16 of us.
Wow. Okay. Big spread.
Yes,
Yeah,
because the gardeners brought themselves and their children. They couldn't leave their children behind, so they came with their kids as
that's
well.
great. So, what happened after that? You got to know Joan
Yeah, I
better?
got to know Joan pretty much, and like I said, there were things going on in the food world. I think people were just getting themselves looking at the food system in a more cohesive and broad based way, and looking at the fact that many people were struggling. Many people were struggling to have access to healthy food. This was a point in time where people were starting to see there was a have and have not food system. People with power and privilege had better food than people in low income neighborhoods. And so how do we first acknowledge that, and then how do we bring it to the forefront, and then how do we find remedies to make sure that food as a human right is fair and just. And as a board member, we had to, tackle issues around funding, tackle issues around organizations that we support at the time, to make sure that they were doing the right things. They were doing the right things. We were a very proactive board. We weren't a board that just was able to, agree and have money being put into communities. We had a great director at that time, Jackie, and during board meetings, the staff would come and talk about the programs that were going, that they were, that Just Food was having in different neighborhoods, and so we were able to sit down and listen, to find out exactly what the programs were, what the need was, and how, as a board, that we could support not only the director but also the staff. And I think that was important. And one thing about Joan, which I really liked, is that she raised a lot of questions, about what was going on in communities, how resources were being spent, which is really, really important. And then it came a point in time when things started to change. And she said, Karen, I think things are changing. I think it's time for me to step down. But we still remained friends after that.
What was that change that she felt it was time?
Yeah, so Jackie Berger, who was the ED for so many years, decided to step down. And then we had another ED that came in and was there for maybe a year or so. And then again, I think it was the ED changes that she decided that, it was just time for her. It
Yeah.
was time for her. She's been on the board, I think, from the very beginning, and I think she just felt that with change, new voices, new opinions come about. But she told me something. I'm going to keep it as a secret. She gave me some good advice that I should have listened to, but I didn't. And so, and that's something that, sort of, I wouldn't say haunts me, but like I would say to myself now that now I'm an elder, is that sometimes you got to listen to what your elders have to say because they have a lot of wisdom. You know it all, but sometimes you don't. And so I will cherish that moment. I would cherish those words that she gave me. And if I could do it all over again, I would have. But in hindsight, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I interviewed Barbara Kingsolver last week about Joan, and I was asking her, well, what did you learn about Joan from Joan that came into your books? And she said, actually, I knew a lot of that part. What I learned from Joan was to stand up and speak the hard truth. And she said, I was raised to be very polite and nice, but sometimes you can't be.
And
So,
that's what my downfall was, because it was a situation where I, again, trying to be nice, and made a decision that I regret. But
mm-hmm,
she saw through it. She saw through. She says, Karen, I'm going to give you some advice. I don't think you should be doing this. You shouldn't go this way. And then I was saying, well, I think this person needs a chance. And she says, no, 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 no. It's not gonna be good. It's not gonna be good. And within a year's time, it wasn't good.
mm-hmm,
She saw through it. Again, she had that wisdom. She saw through people. She knew who was fake and who was real. And one thing about Joan too, Joan was hard. It was to be close to her or in her circle. Um, she valued real, authentic people. She knew people who were phony, and she would not allow them in her circle. And that's one thing I learned from Joan. As I continue to move in these spaces, there are people who admire you for what you do, and they try to get next to you, but they're not really authentic. They're just trying to bask in your celebrity.
mm-hmm.
And but with Joan, she, if you are a friend, you are a friend for life. As a matter of fact, I was looking at, I think I have some emails. I think the last email that I got from her was 2023. I think I was looking back. We're just talking about, getting together. And what hurts too, Dave, is that when I had heard that she was doing well, I had went to a lot of her friends. In particular, I said, like, to Mark Bittman, I said, you know what, let's all get together and surprise Joan, and I think it's one of her birthdays, and celebrate, because you never know what's going to happen. And I regret that didn't happen. I really regret that didn't happen. And something like that, you gotta live with that. But I do cherish the fact that I knew her. I called her my friend. She called me her friend, and the loss was felt. The loss was felt among so many people that she touched. She will
Yeah.
be greatly missed. And so, what I got to do is to make sure that I stand up and I'm direct, and I carry on that fire that she had.
As the elders die, the next generation becomes the elders. That's right. And with all the
Yeah,
opportunities and responsibilities.
true.
Yeah.
Yes,
She stayed a long time.
she did.
She did.
But she had work to do.
She
And then
did.
when the work was done, it was like, okay, I've done the best I could do.
Yeah.
And I left an imprint on a lot of people to carry on the work.
Yeah. Yeah. In that board of Just Food, was there a particular uh, point or attitude that she had that she was trying to impress on people that they maybe didn't get right away?
Yeah, again, when you're on a board, you're in a room with so many different personalities making decisions. And I think a lot of people, I mean, she was well respected. So a lot of times it was like, so what does Joan think? And not that people's voices weren't validated, but, it came a point in time whereby she knew the landscape at a time, a food landscape at a time where it was just coming to the surface for a lot of us, but she's been in the trenches for so long. And so just to hear her experience on how things were in the real world was great. I was new to the food system at a time. I was so I did was able to contribute from more of a community based level because what people were talking about, I was living that. When people were talking about poverty, underserved communities, I was living that. So I guess I brought that to the board, but Joan brought a lot of influence. She knew about people who were doing food businesses, growing food projects, chefs, writers, um, donors. She knew all those educators, so she had a wealth of information because she was been out there. She lived that all her life. So bringing that to the table, were there times where we would sort of, I wouldn't say battle, but there's always different opinions, and that's what's good about boards, because you don't want to be on a board where everybody is yes, 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 just so that they can leave. But you want to be able to sit down and just talk about how things are going, how the organization is going, how the funding is going, because I'm learning that now. The financial aspect is our responsibility, as board. And so we have to make sure that not only are we talking about programs, but also analyzing the health of the organization, the fundraising aspect, what's the budget, and going, and that's another thing she was good too. Line item of the budget, like how money is being spent, is crucial. Is crucial. I'm learning that now as I've been on so many boards and understand the fiduciary responsibility that comes with being on the board, and not to take it lightly. And so sitting down and going through line item to find out exactly what is this for, or what do you need, how's the fundraising going on, like who do we know that we can tap in to get funds for, having those conversations. And also, how's the staff, so how are things on at the staff level, what programs are working, what are not working, who is, not causing trouble, but who the difficulty. But Just Food had a great staff, so I mean, really had a great staff, and so that wasn't the problem. It's just making sure that there was funding, and I think
Yeah.
So that's where a lot of the conversation went, the budget items, after we heard from programs exactly how the program was doing and how the organization itself was doing, how things have changed now. Woo. In this day, time and day, things have changed tremendously. Um, just food, going out there now in this time where so many things are being challenged. Justice, the word justice itself is being challenged. Diversity is being challenged. Inclusion is being, these words that we were fighting for, are being challenged. Um, it just gives you food for thought. And then how do we pivot in a way that we continue to value the work that we are doing, especially for people who are in some ways being targeted, being targeted. And so things are different. Things are different now. And we just have to fight. We really have to make sure that we fight for our justice. We fight for our freedom. We fight for who we are. We fight for our diversity. We fight for this country. We fight for people who may not have the ability to feed themselves. Um, and so this is a critical moment right now, a critical moment. And it's going to take a village and it's going to take a community to come through to make sure that at the end of this crisis, this chaos, that we'll still be standing and we'll still be a country known as the United States of America. And I have to say that, Dave. I really have to say that, but we're at a critical point in time where we're seeing people with power and privilege exercise it in such a way that they're silenced. And it's like, what are we doing? There's a bully, and a bully is just trying to change systems and the way people live, and we need to combat that.
Yeah, I, I'm with you. Um, was there? I'm with you. Can I ask about the organization that you're now working to develop and support? What is that called? What
Well,
organization is your heart organization right now?
yeah. Well, my I own a farm with four of my friends. I own a farm with four of my friends, and it's a for-profit farm. We now have like a little side nonprofit work because we do education. But for me, it's growing food and feeding people. And for me, that's the most important thing, to be able to be close to the land. So we're at Chester Agricultural Center up in the Hudson Valley. We're in the Black Dirt region. What does that mean? The land is so sacred. Black dirt means that it's rich in organic matter. Usually, soil is 5, 3% organic matter. We're at 20%, close to
Wow.
30%. And so number one, to be able to be thankful, to be able to grow food for that, but then to be able to grow food in a way that our intention is to make sure that every human, regardless, have access to the food that we grow. We just got to be certified organic, which is a big deal. The name of my farm is Rise and Root Farm. There's four of us. Two of us are women of color. Three of us are LGBTQ women. We all come from community gardens in New York City. And all four of us were part of Just Food. So we came from Just Food too. And so we brought our heart, we brought that mission and put it into the soil so that we grow food, so that everybody, no matter what, can have access to healthy food. And so that's where my heart is. That's where my heart is. But I do have other organizations that sort of branch off that I continue to work with. Just started a couple of years ago. Black Farmer Fund started that because of the fact that farmers in New York State, out of 52,000 farmers, only 139 are black. And so just making sure that there's access, there's a playing field of of financial wealth that can be shared, and just open up that conversation about the wealth disparity we have in this country, especially when it comes to agriculture, not only in terms of monetary wealth, but also land. And right now, as a black farmer, we only own 1% of agricultural land in this country. And so those are the things that, I look at. I really look at the inequality that's happening, and really try to get people to realize that food is a human right. Food, water, and shelter are human rights. And why is it? The question I ask time and time again, Dave, is that why in this great country, I love America. I love America. I see before January of this year how it's going in a good direction, how it's embracing its diversity, its heart, trying to help people. And that the question that I would ask is, why do we have hunger and poverty? Why is it? What's going on in this system? Why do we have homelessness? Why do you can go to work in New York City and you can literally step over people while you go to work, and that doesn't affect you? Or people sleep on the subway or on a church step, and that doesn't affect you. And so, and it's not being addressed. And so I continue to I guess trigger my humanity, my humanity, trigger my humanity, in a way that makes me make sure that I continue to ask those hard questions. And I will continue to ask those hard questions until hunger's no more. So,
Yeah. It's like that Buddhist vow, which is that I will continue until all suffering is ended, and we don't see that end in sight. So it's a commitment for a very long time. Um, can I ask for your farm? Who are you feeding? Who are your customers?
yeah, so we have a connection to a community center that I belong to, and continue to be on the board to, which is the Mary Mitchell Center in the Bronx. They run a farmers market that I helped start back in 2004, and it's still going strong. La Familia Verde Farmers Market out of Just Food, the first community-based farmers market that wasn't a green market, but was literally a farmers market started by community gardens. Now, let me tell you something. 2004, when that happened, people thought we were crazy. Just Food would say, come on, we can do this, we can do this, because first of all, we had to get permits. So we had to buck up against the big, you know, um, green markets that were already out there and try to get a place. I had to go to we found a location inside a park. So I had to go to my community board to get permission through the Parks Department to get access to that place for the farmers market from July to November. I also had to go to the Department of Transportation to get signs that says farmers market drivers only. It was a lot. And then I had to go through ag and markets to acknowledge the fact that we were 5 community gardens, but we were a farmers market cooperative. So the 5 community gardens acted as like one farm
Mm.
and to be recognized. And so, that was through Just Food, getting all those things through Just Food. And now there are community based farmers markets. I think at the time I left, there were 20 community based farmers markets throughout New York City, and it continues, which is Just Food did it. Just
That's
Food
great.
did it.
That's
And
great.
so, like I said, we come from community gardens, um, and we've been here. This is our 11th year. We just celebrated last year our 10th anniversary. And we supply food to, I said, the Mary Mitchell Center in the Bronx. Also, we have a food pantry here, the Guild of St. Margaret. We supply food to them, their soup kitchen and food pantry. We do farmers markets, but our farmers markets are now only from um, March until June. And then we grow the starts, the transplants, the beginning plants for all the community gardens in New York City through Green Thumb program.
Great.
So we
Yeah,
do a
that
lot of work, a lot of hard work, but it's good for us. We feel so grateful and so thankful that we have this opportunity to do that. That we did not leave our community behind. That we didn't, go into high end markets or feed high end people. We wanted to make sure that if we came from grassroots, we were going to go and feed grassroots organizations. So we feel good about that.
Karen, were you part of that program that was just discontinued this year? I knew a farmer out in the Midwest, and a quarter of her farm was dedicated to supplying food pantries and schools. And
Yes,
it was a big deal when it got dropped
the
because,
USDA food program. Yes, 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 yes. Um, maybe if the rural farmers, um, were really, the big commercial farmers, they don't really need those grants. It's the small farmers that needed that money, those grants, to help us, help us. And so what has happened now is that was federal money.
yeah,
And so there are some programs that have closed because of that. But what we're trying to do is see if the state will take on that responsibility. And so, in some instances, like in New York, the state has come up with some funding. But the fact is that, again, we pay taxes. So, I mean, like, why is that your money? That's our money. And again, we need some more powerful people to sort of negotiate that for us. And as long as it doesn't affect the farms and farmers that make a lot of money, then they're not going to back us. And I would like to see that. That's one thing I don't understand. When you're a farmer, this is my own interpretation. Like when you're a farmer and you care about your crop, you care about your animals, you should also care about your other farmers. And so if your other farmers are hurting, then you should be out there fighting for your other farmers. But I don't see that happening, and I would like to see that happening because being a farmer to me is unique because you're caring for something, you're caring for the earth, you're caring for your animals. But what I don't see, and I don't see the outcry, is that those farmers that are out there sustainable, making money, and you have small farmers that are hurting, where is the outcry for the government and for people to help those small farmers. I don't know, maybe wishful thinking that somehow there'll be a light switch that farmers will say, wait a second, we're a group, we're a holistic group trying to make the world a better place. And we have a segment of the population of small farmers that are hurting. So, how can we help those small farmers? I would like to hear that. Maybe one day it will happen. But in the meantime, we have our community that's keeping us afloat, our
Uh-huh.
local community. And I think as we sort of maneuver the next couple of months and years, is the community at large is that's going to help us get through this.
And the people are coming together.
Hmm.
They support this. They want this to continue.
Oh, yes. Our community is coming, at this point in time, I try, I'm saying to people that don't focus on what is happening at the national level. Let's focus on what we can do locally. Because right now, it hasn't hurt us yet, but as these tariffs and people who relied on SNAP and food stamps, money being cut, people's medication being cut. Now is the time for us to act, to find out within our own community who are the people who grow food, who are the people who can cook food, who are the people who can drive, who are your plumbers, who are your electricians, who is the babysitter. All these people, how do we then connect so that we are relying on each other in times of need? Who can cook that extra meal when we know that a family doesn't have food to eat? Who can drive or take the kids to school when we know that the family's car doesn't work? Who needs a handyman when the lights don't come on? Now is the time for us to look beyond ourselves and come together as a community and sort of bring to that table, this is what I can do. This is the help that I can give. And I hope that with this happening, it causes that ecosystem, I call it the ecosystem of people coming together and helping each other out. And maybe this is, in hindsight, this will be something that um, will bring us through and will continue to grow. I hope so. Social capital and communal wealth.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we get to take it for a spin, don't we, to find out what we can do under this kind of pressure.
What would Joan do?
What would Joan do? That can be that
That's
can
right.
be
What would
our
Joan
our,
do?
our
Oh
motto
boy.
for the
Oh, I
next.
could hear her now. Oh, I could hear her now. Under these circumstances, she would not hold back. She would not hold back. Oh,
So, how would you get together with Joan after she wasn't on the Just Food board? Would you go visit?
no, you know what? To be honest with you, didn't we did a lot through email.
Yeah.
A lot through email or on the phone. A lot through email on the phone. Didn't get a chance to go back again to visit her, but we did keep in touch. We would talk on the phone or we would email.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, she was
So
remarkable. I think she stopped teaching when she was 93. I think it was 93. That's amazing. And, her teaching was pretty amazing from everything I hear. So she really kept going. Um,
that's what I said. What would Joan do
what would
if
Joan?
she was here? She was here. So, but she left an imprint on all of us. So we take a little bit from what she gave us and go with it. I'm pretty sure her students, the people that she met, she's given a little bit of herself in all of us. And the bottom line is to stand up and fight for truth and not be afraid to do that.
Yeah.
So I think she leaves that behind for all of us to do.
I went to the memorial at Columbia after she died, and it was just marvelous. There was this whole chapel just filled with women. And there were a few guys, there were a few of us there, but so many women who had studied with her, had taught with her, her students who had become teachers after her. It was very lovely.
Yes, she did plant a lot of seeds. So I mean, she left this earth, um, leaving behind a legacy that will continue. A lot of people can't say that, but she did. No regrets. She lived a good life, fulfilling life. She touched so many people's hearts, so many different people, so many different people.
Yeah.
So I'll cherish that. I,
Yeah.
I cherish that relationship that I had with her.
So now that you live, how far from the city is your farm?
An hour and 15 minutes. I tell people my farm, going from New York City to my farm, is faster than going from the Bronx to Brooklyn. It's a nightmare, or to Queens.
Yeah.
Right. So it's right across the Tappan Zee Bridge, up towards Harriman, 87, exit 16. I tell
Yeah.
people, where Woodbury Commons is. It's a big shopping mall. Then I said, we're 3 exits afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's where you are. Yeah. So
And have you developed a community in that town, in that region?
yeah. So yes and no. I mean, in terms of community, we have a watering hole called Rushing Duck that we tend to meet. I think so. We know the community that we live in. We're in the Hudson Valley, and so and the Chester Agricultural Center is the land that we lease. We have 12, now we have 13 farms, independent farms. So there's
Mm.
13 independent farms, but we work collaboratively. And so we share our resources, we share our knowledge, we share our tools. We meet once a month, the farmers, we meet once a month just to talk about, how it's going at Chester Agricultural Center, what our needs are. It's a very, very good program. It started we from the very beginning, 2014. A bunch of investors bought over 200 acres of land to help the next group of young farmers to farm. The lease agreement to farm, lease agreement, a 30-year renewable lease. I would be 100 now, but and to encourage the next generation of farmers to farm on this, like I said, this beautiful, sacred land. And I wish it could be replicated elsewhere, with people with power and privilege that have land and they want to help the next generation of farmers. This is what the Chester Agricultural Center is doing now. So it was at first a for-profit because the investors felt that, well, they thought that they could make money with farming. Now, nah. So now it's more of a nonprofit. They realize
Yeah.
farmers are struggling. So if we thought you was gonna make some money off of us, that wasn't happening. So now it's a nonprofit. And so this, like I said, it's 13 of us. We meet once a month. And so that's our community. At Rise and Root, we have community days. So the last Saturday of every month, we invite the community to come up and visit our farm, because the first couple of years it was crazy because we're so popular in New York City that everybody wanted to come up. And it's like, wait a
Yeah.
second, we are a working farm. So you gotta know. So we came up with a solution. So the last Saturday of every month from 10 to 1, you can come up and visit. 10 to 12 is a farm tour and an activity. And then 12 to 1 is lunch and Q&A.
Great.
People can be satisfied to
Yeah,
come
great.
see us.
Yeah. And that's part of your farm's mission, to
With,
help connect
yes,
people to the farm. Yeah.
without a doubt. Connect people who've never been on a farm, who've never seen women farmers, who've never seen black farmers, who've never seen queer farmers. Our farm is a healing farm. We tell people in crisis, just come up. If you just want to just sit and look at the fields, or you just want to put your hands in the soil, or you just want to take off your shoes and put your feet on the soil, you can do that. You can do that. No questions asked. You can do that.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised how many people have never been on a farm. How many people I used to do some education at a homeless shelter, and they had a kids program, and I did that for a couple of years. And I would invite the kids. They get on the bus to come visit the farm, and oh my goodness, those kids had never been out of the city, and to see them run back and forth, and they would say to me, can we live here? Can we stay here? I don't want to go home. On one hand, it made me happy. On the other hand, it broke my heart. Broke my heart. And I don't take where I am for granted, because there's so many people who would never have the ability to leave the city, never be able to visit a farm, see what I see, feel what I feel. And so I don't take it for granted. It's very spiritual for me being on this land, and I don't take it for granted. I give it gratitude. Each and every day when I go out there on that field, I ask for permission and I give gratitude to be able to work on that farm, to be able to work on this farm, because it's a gift.
Karen, how did you come to be a farmer? How did that happen? You weren't growing up in a farm family.
I grew up on the projects.
Yeah.
My family, no one was a farmer, nobody. I think it was divine intervention. I think also the fact that I had a profession that cared for people. So I was a physical therapist. And so my relationship to my patients was just an easy, move forward to have a relationship to land. And I
Yeah.
look at it like that. I took care of my patients. Now I'm taking care of the land. I'm growing food. I cared about my patients in terms of what they were putting in their bodies, because I worked in underserved communities. And it was so funny because I would walk in prepared to do my program, and I would say my initial evaluation, I would say, I need to go into the kitchen. And they would say, you're the therapist. What do you mean go into the kitchen? I said, I can't treat you if I don't know what you're putting in your body. And most of my patients were hypertensive and diabetic. So I would go in the refrigerator, I would see the soda, the cookies in the cabinets, the ice cream. And I said, come on now, you're not supposed to be eating them. Oh, Miss Washington. And then like I said, I was running the farmer's market. I said, you know what I'm going to do? Next time I visit you, I'm going to bring you some fresh fruits and vegetables, because this is what I'm growing. And I sort of had that relationship with my patients. I had a great relationship with my patients because I value their health. I value their health. And then when I hit 60, I said, okay, now it's time for me to go and follow my dream. And I did. So been here since then, following my
Yeah.
dream. So
That's great. You know, you, when you were taking people fruits and vegetables, did they get it? Did they go, oh my God, this is pretty good? Or did they go, I don't want to eat that?
they went, oh my God, it's pretty good, because most of them grew up on farms.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
when I would tell them that I wanted to be a farmer, they would say, "Oh, Ms. Washington, how could you? It was so hard." They had a negative connotation when it came to farming. But then when I brought the food and we started talking about it, they said, "You know what? You're right. We had this, we used to grow this all the time, and we were never sick a day in our lives. We get everything from the farm, our medicine, our food." And so just having that conversation with them, and then I would ask them, tell me more. Tell me more how it was wringing a chicken's neck. Tell me how it was growing corn, collards. Tell me how it was cooking this meal. And so I had a great conversation with my patients, with my elders they grew up on farms, and they would tell me this, and I would ask them, tell me the stories, and they would sit and tell me the stories, and it brought back good memories. Instead of like, Miss Washington, why do you want to be a farmer? For me to sit there and hear those stories made a difference in my life.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
okay.
All right. Listen, this is fantastic, but I try to keep this to an hour. So, Karen,
Yes, thank
any last words that you would like to say about
you.
anything?
No, I just want people to understand that we are going to get through this. Find joy in your life. Find humility in your life. Surround yourself with positive people. Surround yourself with people who are trying to make a difference, and we will get through this together. That's what I got to say.
All right. Well, thank you for saying it. All right.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Thank you for listening to the Real Organic Podcast. If you have a spare minute today, the single most effective way you can help us grow this movement and others to find this podcast is by leaving us a rating and a review wherever you listen to our podcast. You can find a video version of this interview on our website or on our YouTube channel, and you can join us every Sunday for a new episode featuring voices from the organic movement. And if you haven't already, please sign up for our weekly newsletter at realorganicproject.org/email. See you next time.